So Star Wars Battlefront 2 has had a significant hype around it since its reveal. It seems that a lot of the community is anticipating this game to fix most, if not all, the problems from the first to create an overall more fun experience. A lot of people will agree with me that the first Battlefront by DICE in 2015 looked and sounded great, but was fairly repetitive in nature and didn't capture the attention of the average gamer for too long. I was actually pretty critical of the first game in the beta a couple years ago and didn't actually purchase it until the beginning of 2016 when it was already on sale. I really should have been able to tell it wasn't a good sign that a AAA game was discounted $20 only 2 months after its launch. So I had a bit of fun with it, but decided to put it down not much later. So when they announced Star Wars Battlefront 2, I refused to get on the hype train. I've been viewing this game more cynically, knowing how deceivingly complex the series can be from trailers when the core gameplay is just simple and boring. So by now you can probably tell I didn't really enjoy my time with the Battlefront 2 beta. So just to let you know ahead of time, this will be an overall negative review of the game so far. If you want to hear more positive things about the game, then check out HelloGreedo's review, as we seem to disagree on just about every front. I'll link the video in the description if you're interested. That being said, here are my thoughts on the Star Wars Battlefront 2 beta. I knew we weren't really off to a great start when the cutscene the game loads in with tells you,
Star Wars Battlefront 2 has nearly triple the number of locations, heroes, and vehicles as its predecessor.
This honestly made me chuckle the first time I saw it, as it's clear they're directly addressing the lack of content from the first game. But the problem is that's not all we wanted out of the sequel. Sure, it's better to have some more maps and a few new vehicles, or as they put it, almost 3 times as many. But after some of the DLC came out in the original, the main problem with the game was just its simplistic nature and lack of a proper reward system. Now to be fair, they have taken some steps to address these issues, but they end up not really mattering much in the grand scheme of things. For example, they implemented a new class system. Okay, I'm on board with that. But each class serves the same role and is only given slightly different abilities to perform that role. There isn't much depth outside of you see an enemy, shoot him. From what I've experienced, the only really good classes are the Assault and the Heavy, which admittedly do play differently, but don't really interact with each other in a meaningful way. Take DICE's other popular series, Battlefield. The class system in that game ensures that every player has an important role for their team. The medic heals and revives allies, the Assault is meant for rushing in and destroying vehicles to keep allies alive, the Support stays back and resupplies allies, and the Sniper provides covering fire to help the team stay alive. Each role is meant to aid one another, and Battlefront 2 comes nowhere near this depth. We're left with a watered down, seemingly last minute decision to add classes to a game that doesn't really utilize them effectively. So when John Boyega says,
Star Wars Battlefront 2 has nearly triple the number of locations, heroes, and vehicles as its predecessor.
That's great, John, but it doesn't really fix much. Another one of the criticisms I and others had of the first game was the inconsistent ways to play as a hero or vehicle. Previously, you just had to be lucky and find the drops scattered around. This game definitely does take steps to fix that, but along the way introduces a wealth of new problems that bring the game back down. The first fix, and I put that in quotes as you'll see in a second, is the removal of drops altogether. So this I think would be a great idea to reform the system for earning vehicles and heroes, but now that they're gone, I'm realizing that I miss the normal drops that just gave you some type of special weapon, like the thermal imploder grenade or a one-time use rocket launcher. Because they're gone now, there's no longer that occasional surprise from walking along and seeing a pickup on the ground. This is a smaller thing, but I've noticed it makes gameplay a bit more boring as your weapons and 3 abilities are the only tools you have available. But to get back to heroes and vehicles, the new system for earning them is undoubtedly an improvement, but still far from perfect. Now as you play, you earn points from various acts such as damaging an enemy or playing the objective, and they all add up throughout the course of the game to spend on vehicles, special soldiers, and heroes. This would work pretty well, except in my experience most people just save up 5,000 points for a hero and no one really picks air or ground vehicles. This means that if I decide one game that I'm fine with not being a hero and spawn in an air vehicle, there's usually no one around to shoot down. So this game suffers from the same problem from the original where the air combat is effectively pointless. Because vehicles travel so fast and the maps are filled with buildings in the way, it's extremely difficult to use an air vehicle against infantry, rendering them useless. So simply by making vehicles cost points, DICE has practically made them irrelevant in helping the team. I want to talk a bit more about air combat before I move on. Overall, it seems really weird in this game. Your left stick now controls the rotation of the vehicle as well as its speed, meaning that in many dogfights my vehicle will randomly flip over for no reason and make it extremely difficult to aim. This is annoying and a lot worse than the original. In HelloGreedo's review, he was saying that the air combat feels really nice and accurate, but I just had a completely different experience. It's probably because I'm just bad, but I'm not so sure as people seem to have trouble locking on to me as well. So So now let's talk about 4 smaller changes in the game that are more significant than I was anticipating. The first of which is the removal of jetpacks from normal soldiers. Now this to me isn't necessarily a bad thing. In the first game the jetpack was super powerful and allowed for substantial mobility to the point where you kinda had to use it in one of your 2 slots if you wanted to stand a chance. So it sorta ruined one of the only mechanics in the game that had some sort of depth, as you really could only bring one item other than the jetpack. So my 2 ideas initially for fixing that was either giving everyone the jetpack as a default ability, or taking it away completely, and they went with the latter. Although I do sort of miss boosting around like a lunatic, it does make sense in the context of the game and actually balances gameplay quite a bit. The next small thing they changed is the spawn system, which I still don't completely understand. In the original game, respawning was almost instant, so I got used to not having to wait much time before I could load back in. If they were to simply increase the time it takes to respawn, I wouldn't necessarily be against that. But what bugs me is the inconsistent nature with this new method. Sometimes you'll die and be able to choose a class and respawn in just a few seconds, but other times it can take up to 20 seconds as you wait for some teammates to die as well. It's a really weird and unintuitive system that is just frustrating and increases my disinterest towards the game. The next thing I noticed that may be controversial and I think could be argued are the graphics. To me, they overall seem a tiny bit worse than the original, or if nothing else the same. I actually went back for a bit to the original Battlefront over the weekend to compare, and I didn't notice anything significant. However, in Battlefront 2 I noticed that there's a lot more motion blur that is meant to make the illusion of more realistic graphics, but ends up looking to me more bland. I don't know, I wasn't really expecting the sequel to have significantly better graphics or anything, but it was surprising to me that in some areas it seems worse. The last thing I noticed was added was loot crates, the new way to earn star cards. I was reading some articles earlier about how these crates could potentially be pay to win in the full version, and honestly I think they have a point. These aren't cosmetic only. They actually do affect gameplay in a significant way. While I don't think it will be pay to win in the sense that you have to spend money to stand a chance, I do think it will be frustrating to many players who don't want to spend extra money on crates and just want to get a specific star card. It just seems pretty scummy, and I'm not a fan of the direction modern games are taking us in terms of microtransactions. So those are my thoughts on the Star Wars Battlefront 2 beta. So far I'm even less impressed with the game than I was before I played it, which as I said earlier wasn't much to begin with. I know plenty of people out there will enjoy this game, so I'll just say it wasn't for me. I prefer games with some more depth and progression. I purposely haven't mentioned the campaign much in this video, as the game was created focused around multiplayer, so even if the single player is fun, it isn't where the game's focus is centered. So in my opinion, really the only thing this game has going for it are some more maps, heroes, and a campaign. If it wasn't for the fact that this game simply dumps some more content into the disc, I would just prefer to play the original game, either the one from 2015 or 2004. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.